Let's try this now.
1, 2, 3, swing it.
Here we go. Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, duplets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way!
I was terrified about sharing the vulnerabilities of people with difficulties reading and spelling words. However, I could see the value in sharing, and I have taken the time to
or like this.
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Life check like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, you're my World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
World Jam Global Radio. This is clarity.
It's for the people who are wondering why we're in the streets and we're outraged. It's basically a rundown of what's happens, and this is recent. And it's if you run, you die. Hashtag Walter Scott. If you stay and get arrested, you die. Hashtag Freddie Gray. Lay down while handcuffed, you die. Hashtag Eric Harris. Hashtag Oscar Grant. If you fight back, you die. Hashtag Trayvon Martin. If you mind your business, you die. Hashtag John Crawford. Put your hands up, you die. Hashtag Mike Brown. Proclaim your innocence, you die. Hashtag Eric Garner. Getting married, you die. Hashtag Sean Bell. Pansagging, you die. Hashtag Irvin Edwards. Beg for your life, you die. Hashtag Thaddeus McCarroll. Hashtag Cedric Barty. Just alive at 12 years old outside playing, you die. Hashtag Tamir Rice. Be outside, you die. Hashtag Rekia Boyd. Be at home chilling, you die. Hashtag Katherine Johnston. Run into your home, you die. Hashtag Ramarley Graham. Injured asking for help, you die. Hashtag Jonathan Farrell. Be in a stairwell, you die. Hashtag Akai Gurley. Smoke a cigarette, you die. Hashtag Sandra Bland.
Wow.
Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already.
Stand by for another exclusive interview on Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio with your host, Kevin Julian.
My time.
I'm having a lot of problems trying to get this streaming out, so please bear with me. It is on its way.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already already did my time.
Wow, how we must have upset the system, huh?
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison. Prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been.
Well, I've never had that much trouble.
Man, don't
trying to launch my stream.
Ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spin it all.
The amount of times it kicked me off, it kicked me out.
With this living hell, already did.
Want to say a big good evening to you wherever you may be. This is another edition of Issues Today live on World Jam Global Radio. It's the Issues Today Roundtable.
Already did.
Part 5.
Paid for my crime.
And we call this one a Central Park 5 debate standby.
Did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, so...
Now you are joining us this week as we present another Roundtable special. The Central Park 5 debate will focus not only on the wrongful convictions of these now infamous exonerees, but it will also discuss when they see us and what that actually means. With guest Mark Clemens, who was wrongfully convicted. We're still waiting for him to join the group. Lorraine Thompson, whose son was wrongfully convicted. Supported by Kill by Cop activists Yolanda McNair and Dee Martin, alongside Patrick Lane. And our co-producer, Therese Posset Gallagher. Keeping it all together. Once again, I'll be asking the awkward questions. Try not to point out the obvious. And unraveling the truth. Stand by.
I paid for my crime. Already did my time.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison. Prison. Prison.
Wow. Trying to cope with this living hell. Trying to cope with this living hell. Yes I am, yes I am, yes I am, yes I am, yes I am. Trying to cope with this living hell. This living hell, this living hell, this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
We have
the who are in heaven,
Yolanda McNair, Lorraine Thompson, Dee Martin, Therese Gallagher,
done on earth.
And we're still waiting on Mark Clements and Patrick Lane. But we do have a show. We're live. It's World Jam Global Radio.
We forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Atlanta, San Antonio, I see ya. If you're having difficulty receiving this stream, you can still follow us on YouTube. We are live.
All those drive-by killings, stop them. It ain't about nothing. He who was out sin, let him cast the first stone. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide, and put down those knives, stop stabbing each other. Yeah.
Stand by. Okay, I don't know where you are, what part of the world you might be, but this is live. This is Issues Today. My name is Kervin Julian, and alongside me today we have our guests, Yolanda McNair, D. Martin, Lorraine Thompson, alongside our committed and hard-working co-producer, Therese Gallagher. Now, I think some people are saying that our YouTube is off. Let me just double check. Nope, it's all online. If you want to check it out now, we are now officially online on YouTube. So not to worry, please. Just get on there if you can. If you're having a struggle on Facebook. Right, first, before we go any further, let me just introduce my co-producer, TJ, Therese Gallagher. How are we doing, TJ?
Good, thank you.
Okay, well, I
And
know
you,
I'm not bad. I know that we've been talking about these difficulties in streaming today, but I can see it live on Facebook now, so we are live.
Yes.
We're also live on YouTube.
Right.
So we're live. Okay. Whatever it was that the enemy was trying to block, it didn't work. We persevered and we battled through. But it's great to be here for another week on Issues Today. And we got a special show lined up, haven't we, TJ?
Oh my gosh, yes. Can you imagine? It's been unbelievable. The outpour with the introduction with Homeless World Cup. Shreds, it's on Shreds with you. 1988, you started that?
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So for those of you that don't know, my introduction to wrongful conviction started way back in 1988 here in the UK when some people out of the community that I was living in were charged for a murder they didn't commit. Very similar. In fact, it was a year before the Central Park 5. It was in 1980. Central Park 5 was 89. The Cardiff 5 was in 1988. I quickly got involved with family members. We set up a protest, a campaign, and we started to get to work. Fortunately for us, our difficulties that we have in this country are not as bad as what you guys got in America. And it took us 4 years to get them to the Court of Appeal and have their conviction squashed and have them vindicated and exonerated and set free. Last year was the 30-year anniversary. Because don't forget, even though that we fought for the freedom of these individuals, there was still a victim in this. Somebody actually died. And it was a horrific murder. She was absolutely mutilated and butchered. And it was a young girl with her life ahead of her. And it was the 30-year anniversary of her death. And I was involved with the BBC here in the UK of putting together a 13-part or 13-series podcast, which actually eventually went to #1 in iTunes. And this went out.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. But it didn't just uncover all the bad things that went on and the conspiracy that the police had in bringing about a false conviction and a wrongful conviction on some innocent guys. I mean, for example, Tony Parris's father died while he was still in prison and never got to see his son exonerated. He died a broken man who loved his children dearly, never believed his son was guilty, but he never had the opportunity of seeing his son set free. He died before his son was released. And that's also something that weighs quite heavy on him. Yusuf Abdullahi, who was one of those that was convicted, became so much of a recluse. He eventually died a very young man at the age of 45, with all sorts of medical difficulties and depression. John Actie, who was actually released, he was one of those that was acquitted at the trial. He became a bit of a hermit and a recluse as well. The impact, the negative impact. If you watched the drama of When They See Us, the Central Park 5 drama, and see the impact that it had on their families, well, that's what I'm talking about. It tore families apart here in Wales.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've just recently, Michael Sheen, the Hollywood actor, has successfully bid to bring the Homeless World Cup to the UK for the first time. And for those of you that don't know, I run my own homeless charity right here in the UK, and I've run that for about 11 years now, feeding up to 350 people a week, alongside other members of my church.
Awesome.
And yeah, we've been doing this for some time now. So getting out to the Homeless World Cup here, which is the first time we've ever won the bid to bring it to the UK, it was a great honour.
So perseverance.
Absolutely. But Michael Sheen is setting up a debate tent or some sort of a unit. There's some events that are taking place during this World Cup, and one of it is for us to discuss this wrongful conviction of these guys who were sentenced to life for a crime they didn't commit. And I've only just recently accepted the offer because the words were that they didn't want to do this without me, and I feel quite honoured at that.
Absolutely not.
So I'll be sitting alongside. I'll be sitting alongside two of the remaining exonerees because Yusuf has died. Ronnie Actie, another one who was acquitted, he's also died. He died quite young, again in the height of depression and taking all sorts of prescription medication because this crime, this stigma, absolutely destroyed him. Everything that went with attaching this crime to his name is that, I mean, this woman was mutilated. She was almost beheaded, and her breasts were completely cut off in this frenzied attack. She was stabbed over 50 times by her psychotic assailant. And this was the crime that these innocent people were stigmatized with. It destroyed them. It destroyed their families. It destroyed their relationships. It destroyed the community. It had a massive negative impact, completely ripping lives and souls apart. And again, as I said, two of them have already died, so there's only three left. One's in London, but two of the remaining guys are going to be on that panel with me, discussing what went wrong, the police investigation, the criminal content of that. But also, I want to share with you.
You make us proud, boss.
Yeah, this morning, I was given another offer by the producer of the BBC programme, the podcast that we did. We've now also, on top of this Homeless World Cup that we've been invited to, we've now just been invited to the House of Commons, which is the equivalent of going to your White House. And we're going to be sitting in front of the Justice Committee.
That is huge.
And bringing forth this case and the fact that even though all the evidence has confirmed that there was foul play by the police officers, not one of them has been brought to justice, and most of them have been allowed to retire with their pensions.
Wow.
So the battle goes on.
Huge step.
It's a huge step. It's one that I'm extremely honoured to be involved with and take part. And I'm really looking forward to feeding back to you guys the outcome of these meetings when they take place.
It's exciting,
So in July, I'm up in South Wales, where I'll be doing the Homeless World Cup debate. And then in October, I'm going into the House of Commons to meet with the Justice Committee Select and raise our concerns. And I'm also
awesome.
Well, again, thank you very much. But this we sit tight on this right here on Issues Today worldwide, and you guys have a much bigger battle than we have here because we've got some legislative. I'm not going to say it. You know the word legislative. Yeah, that word.
Legislative.
legislative
I love
procedures.
that. We got you. No worries.
Yeah, legislative procedures in place. That's right, that prevents certain things from happening. And in fact, let me just go on to say that this case that I'm talking about here now, the Cardiff 5, became a test case in the UK and has now gone into every university for any student studying law.
Oh my goodness.
And they now have to, and now that we've actually managed to change the way that police question and interrogate individuals, because Stephen Miller, the chief culprit, very much like how they did with the Central Park 5. They isolated one individual. They targeted the weakest one. Stephen Miller also had learning difficulties and had the mental age of an 11-year-old. And they used him. They interviewed him for over 72 hours without a break, without water, or without anything to eat, or without any sleep.
That's insane.
Literally terrorized him.
Breaking him down.
Yeah, terrorized him, and bearing in mind, the girl that was murdered was his girlfriend. And they're claiming that he allowed his friends to butcher and mutilate his girlfriend because she couldn't come up with the money for his crack cocaine use.
Wow.
Right? But they kept showing him photographs of her mutilated body as his body tired. And 83 times, I think it was, 300 and something odd times, he said he didn't do it. And the one time they broke him down and he said he did, that's when they charged him.
Isn't that crazy?
But isn't that so similar to what they did to the Central Park 5? Because none of them confessed to directly committing the crime, even though they implicated the others. Not one of them said, yes, I did it. I was involved in this. Or they all said that they saw it and the other one did this and the other one did that and they saw that one do this, but not one of them said that they did it. And but we'll go into that a little bit later on, because there are so many similarities between the Cardiff 5 and the Central Park 5 it's horrific and almost scary that these things could have happened so close to one another.
Very scary.
But what I really wanted to get through was get into the concept of what it is that they see when they see us that frightens them so much that they resort to all of these type of tactics in order to put us behind bars or end our life. But that's going to be the concept of today's show. But we're also going to start off, because thank you again for letting me just talk a little bit about shreds. I don't really like talking about my cases as much as that, but it's a privilege and an honor to have been involved in that. And Kerry Jackson, who is the producer of Shreds, is now somebody I consider as a person. In fact, we've actually had her on the show. I've had her on this show about a year or 2 years ago, and we were looking.
You're making a change, boss. You're making a change, and it's huge.
Right.
And we will continue to fight until we make some more changes. Right.
Right.
Which is what this roundtable team is all about. So.
Right.
Correct.
Tell us what else we've got lined up on today's show. Just thank you for letting me air some of this Shreds and Cardiff 5 stuff. It's important to me. It's important to the UK. But
It is very important.
But I'm also hoping that it's very
our
encouraging.
listeners.
Yeah, encouraging to anybody else who's going through these sort of difficulties. That there is light at the end of the tunnel. We can win. There is victories.
Right. Perseverance.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. So, boss, wrongful convictions. There, I Googled it, and there's so many that are going to court now that are being exonerated. And so that also is a huge, huge movement. Curtis.
Do you know what one of the hurtful things is, though, TJ? Is seeing how many of these people that are in. There was one just a week or 2 weeks ago. The guy was 81 or 83 when he was just released.
Right.
He'd been in for 43 or 40 something
That's
odd
right.
years.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's just been exonerated and set free. But at 83, no disrespect, I'm quite sure he's glad to be free and exonerated.
Right.
But what life has he got left?
Right.
Where's his youth gone? Where's his baby-making years and his grandfather years and his family relationship years? Where are they? You can't give him that back.
Right.
It's taking too long for these wrongful convictions to come before a Supreme Court or another court or appeal court. For these people to be exonerated. 28 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's too long. It's too long.
Correct.
We were sorry, TJ. We were quite fortunate in able to get the Cardiff 5 or the Cardiff, because there was only 3 of them that were eventually convicted. It only took us 4 years to get them back to the Court of Appeal and get them out of jail. But I would have dread to have thought if we were still doing this on the 30-year anniversary when we were doing these podcasts last year, if that's what we were doing, still talking about the guys that were still in prison for a crime that not everybody knew they didn't commit.
Right. So it's not futile. It's not futile then, boss.
Absolutely not. So, we want to talk about that tonight. But we really want people to start taking a serious look at how we see, how we view, how we reflect, how we look at these types of cases. Because I think some people find it far too easy to find people guilty, forgetting about some of the experiences that they've had themselves.
That's right. That is right.
But you take us into today's show, TJ. I'm stealing the limelight again.
Okay. Yolanda McNair, the mama bear of our roundtable, she will be joining us with Dee Martin and Patrick Lane, Mark Clements, as well as Lorraine Thompson. And Lorraine will be talking to us about her group. And you know how it's hard to get everyone on the same page sometimes. Life goes on, but I thought that we'd get Lorraine in so she could tell us about her group, since it's so difficult to group together all those that are involved with her group. And it's huge. And it's for wrongful convictions. Her son was wrongfully convicted.
Okay.
And I'm just really excited to hear the stories and the advocacy and go ahead.
Yeah, so for us, we want to make sure that we really give Dee Martin some quality time as well, because she's only going to be with us for the first hour. So we've got about half an hour left before she needs to go. So
yes.
we kind of need to get her in, and maybe that means that we hold back on Lorraine just for a minute, and just get some feedback from Lorraine. But based on what we've just already said,
that's perfect.
Let's get some feedback on what we've just already said. Again, we've talked about shreds. We've talked about the Central Park 5. We've talked about wrongful conviction in particular. And most importantly, what we've phrased it all around is that terminology that features in that documentary, when they see us. What does that mean for you, Dee? What does that say to you?
You know what? I think, from my opinion, it's what they don't see that they should. When I am approached, or when anybody's approached by law enforcement, it is what they don't see that doesn't allow them to act the way or perform the way that they should. They see a person without value, no deep connection or deep roots to the community. They don't see our families connected to us. They don't see what type of roots we have in the community. All they see is the color, and that instantly puts you in a place where you're not safe, and they'll behave as they can or as they will due to the support system that they have behind them. But it's a lack of what they see that enables them to behave the way that they do. I've given two different situations, and my skin color was the only difference. I believe the outcomes would definitely be different. They would definitely be different, and given the opportunity to speak as to what occurred, what happened. But initially, when they come into our space, there's that chip there. that they are right. Everything that they're stating is correct. You follow demands. This is what you do, without giving them the opportunity to speak. I was speaking at the anniversary for Andre a couple months back, and the way that the officer spoke to me as a Black woman was different than the way that he spoke to my partner beside me. And he didn't look like me, but the respect that he gave him and the questions I was asking him was the same exact thing, maybe a little bit more transparent, but he gave him that respect because of who he was. But me, I didn't get that respect. He didn't look me in the eye. He didn't, he was, pushing off my questions. And I'm trying to be clear here as to what happened, but I'm not given that same respect. So I think that most often, a lot often, it is what they don't see that allows them to do what they do, or give them the right to feel as though they can do what they do. We've had no dollar value from the beginning. How dare they give us the courtesy of common sense and intellectual conversation? It is beneath them to listen because they have all the answers. So who are we to be heard?
Wow.
Who are we indeed? Any response to that one, Yolanda?
You like put me on the spot. She's right. She's absolutely right. And I apologize for the echo, but I'm in a building right now. They don't see us as people. They don't see us as valuable. They don't see us as equal. But ironically enough, I just have to point it out again. If they need a kidney, a heart, just whatever, they want it from us.
But definitely the go-to.
Right. It's like we're walking around extra parts for them. In front of their friends, they don't care if it's Black blood that they get as long as they stay alive. But the truth of the matter is, we are the first people here. And when they look at us, they see everything that they don't want to believe about themselves, that there is no difference between us. We both have two eyes. We both have two lips. We both have teeth. No, there's no difference except for a color of your skin. And let's be clear, Caucasian people who are listening, I am not anti anything, but I will tell you this. You had no choice in what color your skin was. So stop walking around and acting like you did.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful, powerful.
All right.
Lorraine, just very quickly, I mean, your case is not the same in as much as the guys who actually committed the crime are almost the same color skin as your son, right?
That's correct.
But
it wasn't correct. Involved basic race versus the person that lost their life versus the accused. But in regard to where race did play in, everyone in control from the beginning of the investigation to the final judgment, race as well as bigotry and bias played into all decisions that contribute to the arrest as well as the conviction. But just like D. Martin and Yolanda, and we all agree definitely that we're not seeing, we people of color, people even of poverty, my opinion, because at certain levels of income or your place in life, color doesn't even matter at that point. But still not as human, not as children of God. And that's my biggest pain. There's a lot of them, but even in regard to how we're seen and how we're treated among those in authority as well as among each other. So I totally agree that we're definitely not seen as human or as children of God.
You know, I just want to go to TJ a minute because sometimes, you know, TJ is not, well, she is a woman of color, but not a woman of black color. But she has got some color in her, that's for sure.
That's right.
And plus, she's fighting the same battle that we've all been fighting. She lost her son to police brutality. But the way that the law or law enforcement handled the case with Travis, do you see a difference in the way that it's handled with people of color, or? TJ? Right, she's gone. Okay. Let's just flip that back because I was trying to, I think she's busy trying to get Patrick in because Patrick is trying to get on the show, and I'm using the very link that I always use to bring him in, but he says that he can't see it, and he's not answering it, and he says he's only got one ID, so I'm pressing it because I've got it here in the group, but I don't know. So let me just see if I can.
Mr. Curvin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, as we're waiting, I just wanted to, when I was listening to you speak about Shred, and I am, as always, amazed at the favor. I always consider favor God shows on your life. So that's definitely a blessing. But just to say, you know, just from the very first opportunity to even communicate with you, it's just like a light that you can see with the way that you have a zest for what you do. Whether it's in regard to the wrongful conviction, the loss of life, injustice on any level. So that is an amazing thing. And I definitely just wanted to say that. I was just listening to that part earlier. And, you know, you find me with wow all the time. So that's amazing. Definitely will be trying to keep in touch to find out what's going on. And please continue to keep us involved. And then the fact that you mentioned within a 4-year window to be able to get any type of results, that's definitely favor, as well as a better legislation system than what we experienced, which is also what you pointed out. So amazing, wonderful job.
Well, thank you, but I was one of a part of a team. It was a massive effort that went into that, and in fact, your very own Reverend Al Sharpton came over and supported us as well. Came out on one of our demonstrations. Wow. So we flew him in, and we marched around the streets of Cardiff City. We brought the whole town to a standstill as we walked through. And believe you me, the police tried to goad us. They tried to provoke us. They tried to cause a reaction that would make us react violently or aggressively so that they can go, see, there it is. But it didn't happen. Right. Every attempt that they did, including one of the officers that was involved in arresting these guys, he was in plain clothes right there trying to, at the heart of the mix, trying to create some chaos.
That's really amazing to me, because when you look at it and try to understand the underlying purpose, what is the actual reason behind it? I mean, it's almost mind-boggling, because even if you, in regard to a wrong conviction or even just incorrect arrest, if you thought that you were correct, and we've talked about this before, and you learn later that you were incorrect, but you'll still stand behind the lie or still try to intimidate to protect the lie, even when it becomes obvious that it's not true. So it's just mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling.
You know, we've had many shows trying to look at whether it be a police brutality or a wrongful conviction, and the balance between people of color and those of different ethnicities, whether they be, you know, Latinos or white folk. There's not much difference. What I will say is that the difference is in how it's handled. I want to get back to that headline, when they see us. I mean, let me put it this way, without anybody getting offended, and I hope I don't mean to cause offense to anyone. Trust me. We've been having these conversations about Black Lives Matter for a while now, and I don't follow the militant Black Lives Matter movement for a reason. I'm not looking to get militant. I'm not looking to get violent. But I do believe in the principle behind Black Lives Matter, because if every life didn't matter, we wouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter.
True.
And I often have people trying to question why I stand for this. Let me explain this. I can only explain it this way. If I was a ginger-haired fella, right? Because over here in the UK, ginger-haired fella have a rough time. There's a lot of name-calling with ginger-haired people over here, right? If I was a ginger-haired fella and I had a lot of people calling me names, I'd probably be campaigning for the better treatment for ginger-haired people, right? If I was fat, and I'm not fat, and I don't want to offend anybody that's obese or large either. My sister is quite large, and I love her dearly. There's nothing wrong with her. But fat people can get a hard time. If I was fat, I'd campaign against all the unfair treatments and bad name calling that fat people might get. If I was LBGT, I'd probably, campaign against that too. And if I was short, I would campaign against the unfair treatment that short people was getting. If I wore glasses, well, I wear reading glasses, but I'd be complaining about all the cross-eyed, four-eyed kind of negative comments that were coming out. I'd probably be complaining about that too. But I'm none of those things. What I am is black. And let me just say this. Ginger-haired people don't get shot for being ginger. Fat people don't get in prison for crimes that they didn't commit just because they're fat. Short people, right, are not terrorized and have their lives ripped apart and sent to death row because they're short. That only happens to black people. We come across all of those, we cross all those T's, dot all those I's, simply because of the color of our skin. And to me, well, for whatever reason people have to dislike someone, they have one more reason to hate me. See, because I can be ginger and black. I can be fat and black. I can be short and black. I can be tall and black.
Right.
And there lies the difference. So please don't get offended when I say Black Lives Matter. Because if you don't get it,
right,
then you're part of the problem.
I agree.
Because white folk get treated badly. I will stand with them in the wrong ways that they're being treated. But they're not being treated badly because they're white.
That's correct.
That is the difference.
That's correct.
They might be considered to be trailer park, or they might be considered to be Latinos or Mexicans, or they might be considered to be vagrant or of the wrong social group. But they're not being condemned because they're white. They're not being victimized and persecuted and hounded and hunted and terrorized because they're white. That, my friends, only happens to black folk. So for me, when we say Black Lives Matter, it's because it's clear and evident that the judicial system doesn't think so.
I agree.
Now,
totally 100%. 100%.
Now that I've made that statement, does that mean that we are the only ones that are subjected to bad treatment?
No.
So let's go back to that statement. What is it about us that they don't like? Come on, D, before you go.
We've as an African American culture, we've overcome so much to where they hate us to a point that they'll do anything to eliminate it. There was, I was speaking to my father, and we were into this conversation, and it went from as much as we've contributed, as much as we've overcome, as much as we've been oppressed, no matter how much you put your foot on and I'm going to say it just the way that it was told to me, that just as much as we put our foot on a nigga's neck, they will continue to breed and breed and breed. No matter how much you oppress them, no matter what you do, they will continue to breed. This our African American culture, we are the most top consumers. And we continue to build upon someone else's dream, someone else's prosperity, but we don't look to each other to build upon each other. So that is the issue for me. But in hindsight, they do not want us to realize our greatness. Everybody, and I tell my kids this all the time, you continue to go to school and they're teaching you about this slavery shit. I understand that it happened, but they forgot to tell you that you were a king. They forgot to tell you that because they don't want you to know that. The moment we stand up and realize who the hell we are, that's when we think we're still seeing killing now. We will definitely see it. And those cases won't go to court. You won't see those because there's not going to be any evidence that these actions were justified. But the moment we stand up and place our heads on our shoulders correctly, tweak some ears, and realize where your greatness comes from, your highest connection, the Father, is nothing's going to happen that shouldn't happen. But I'm going to tell you this. The reason why we're in this situation now is because we allow it. You think Tom is going to let me go walk up in his mansion and run that shit? Hell no. He's not having it. He knows he's the king there. You need to realize who you are here. And the more they oppress us and take away jobs, take away income, break away family, when you divide the man from his family, you divide the woman, you mess up her mind, you enslave the child, of course we're going to be lost. Of course we're going to behave this way. But we need to get back to what our roots are. And it didn't start with no slavery, no chains, and nothing else. Yeah. So the minute we start realizing that and stand the fuck up, they'll be a little less afraid. They'll be more afraid and aggressive. Things will happen. There's going to be more bloodshed on the street. But that's what it's going to take for you to realize, hey, this is going on. This is what we need to do. This is what's happening. And then have a plan B. So our kids don't need to walk around here with these caps on thinking that this won't happen to them. It will happen to them. How would you feel? I'm having a hard time understanding. There's people that's born into this life right now that's going to be my demise later on. I'm not saying assassinate them. I'm saying get out here and speak the truth and let them know what it is. This hate was not born into this world. It was here and it was taught and created. So we need to unwind this clock.
Okay, listen, I just want to bring Patrick in. We've been waiting for Patrick to get in for almost 50 minutes. Whatever his difficulties have been, I can now gladly assure you Patrick is now on the line. How are we doing, Patrick?
I'm doing well, Kervin. Thank you. I wanted to speak.
Patrick.
Thank you very much. I want to speak to this comment or the last question you had about what is it about us that makes them hate us? And here's what in my 53 years that I've determined, it's not hate, it's fear.
Yeah.
And that fear, I would imagine, now we weren't there, but I would imagine that if you watched some people working in 100-degree weather from sun up to sundown, 6 to 7 days a week, and that would breed, look at these people that can do this. But here's what I want to point out. This is the psychosis of America, is that everything on us, about us physically, is ugly and gross until it's on them. And then it's beautiful. They spend millions of dollars.
Hello, Hollywood.
For hips, for lips, for curls in their hair, for breasts, for they kill
booties, for booties. They even want booties.
They literally kill themselves trying to look pigmented in tanning salons and in the sun. I mean, the skin cancer rates are off this chart. So that's an interesting psychosis about America. Well, you can love everything about me physically but me, right? Mm-hmm. And And I think that as we, just speaking to what Dee just added, I think as we learn and those myths that we've been socialized with are dispelled, they become even more fearful. Because I think also social media has given all of us a window that didn't exist before into each other's lives. Mm-hmm. And so now where it was acceptable to think that there was so much difference between the ethnicities. Now we see that, hey, we are the same. Our families generally operate the same. In America, we have the same names. We cheer for the same teams. We work and are educated side by side. And now they're seeing that these myths that they've been raised with, and that we've all been raised with, quite frankly, are not true. And that there is, as President Obama said in his initial run, there's much more that unites us than could ever divide us. I think it's interesting about America when you can love everything about a person, their lips, the way they look, the way they talk, the way they play, the way they speak, the way they sing, but you don't like the person, but you love everything about them and want them for yourselves. And when it's on us, again, it's ugly and grotesque. Look at that big butt. Look at that big whatever. But when it's on them, it's a beauty. It's interesting to me.
Here's the thing. You started off that statement, Patrick, by saying it's not hate, it's fear. And I'm with you on that. Let's break that down. What do you think about us? What do you think it is about us that they fear?
We have an ability, when I look at humanity, modern civilization, and especially recent times, I see that every group from the natives, which I am part of that group as well, were compensated, or there was some effort made to right the wrong. You have the Japanese who were interned in camps during World War II. We have the Jewish people who suffered through the Holocaust that were recompensated, or there was some attempt made. But there has been no attempt made at us. And yet, as a people, we continue to rise, and it's quite amazing to me, and quite I've always been just so impressed with the strength of Black Americans to persevere, to keep going, even though every chip is against us. We keep going, we keep achieving. Yeah. You would think with the level of racism in America that a Hispanic person would ascend to the presidency before a Black person. A Asian person might ascend to that office before a Black person. But somehow we get there first, and we just continue to rise. I think we are an impressive people. And I also think this, and I'm going to say this, and then I'll be quiet and listen. I also think that when you have generations of unmerited privilege, it tends to make a people soft. You start to expect things that you really have no right to expect. And when confronted with the reality that, you're not necessarily entitled to anything, it's quite a shock. I've seen white people who were discriminated against, and they go ballistic. Whenever they feel as if they've been discriminated against in any way, ballistic. So I think we are just an amazingly strong people. And I think our time here in America and on the planet, frankly, has made us the way that we are.
I think the fear that they have for us has far deeper reaching impacts as far as the characteristics that make them fear us. Hear me out a second. I think one of the characteristics that has caused I think is a massive stand between is our bold confidence, our almost arrogant confidence. I think that in itself causes a problem for those that choose to hate on us. What is your thoughts on that? Let me just go back to Dee a minute.
Can you repeat the last part of that question? I was messaging you all.
Okay, so I've just seen your message, and yes, she's extended her time. It's too hot to leave, she says. It's too hot to leave. I believe that our confidence, almost near arrogant confidence, our bold confidence is one of the major characteristics that actually has them hating on us. What are your thoughts?
I definitely believe so. But is that confidence well earned? I would say so. With everything that we've gone through and that we continue to deal with today, you still find people with and I'm going to just use my sister Yolanda just here for a moment. With all that we've come through and endured, with the situation with Adesha, obviously there's some deeply rooted hate, but she still finds time to smile and still tries to give back. With all this that has happened, it could cripple an individual mentally and physically. So we have the potential to smile in the darkest day. You think your enemies don't want to see that? No, they don't. So
I still think that
power from the darkest places, and your enemy doesn't want to see that, of course he's going to be upset.
And you're quite right there as well, Dee. Again, I think it's even deeper still. Most people of color that I know are passionate. We get excited about what we do, whether it be family, whether it be music, whatever it is that we do, whatever we put our minds to, we're committed to it. We're passionate about it. We get excited about it. We put a lot of effort and time into it, right? And
but Kervin, there's just I'm gonna be honestly truthful with you. I'm half as close to black as night, and I'm proud of it. I wouldn't change it for a bit. But everything that goes on, if we had the ability to change it, some might. I have no idea. But me personally, no. Personally, I wouldn't change a thing. But continuing to go in that cycle, the pride that we hold, there's no. And I'm going to say this, we, in my opinion, my research, my evidence, we are the first. We will always be the first. And that alone is upsetting. Yeah. We still deny it to this day. Many people, there's nothing like a black man. There's nothing like a black woman. I don't care what you mix it and breed it with. It is still there. There's nothing like our culture. Our culture is emulated through all these different backgrounds and ethnicities. If you don't like us so much, let's not try to adopt these traits. Yeah. We are used as and entertainment and spare parts. Give us our dues, or just completely cut yourself off from our culture.
Before we go too far, let's bring in Yolanda. Your thoughts, Yolanda.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. It's true. Imitation is the highest form of respect and regard. And they do it all the time. We want the things, material things that they have. We don't want the physical traits that they have, aside from different color eyes. And truth be told, we have just as many as they do. But we have an advantage that they don't like as far as the physical trait. We can be almost white or black as night, but we all are black. Our hues, they cannot imitate. That kind of makes us similar to a chameleon, because we come in all kind of shades as people of color. But the fact of the matter is, my great-grandfather died at 99 years, 11 months old. His father was a slave. And one of the things that he passed down to us was that, as Patrick said, we can work in 100-degree weather all day long. We don't stop. No matter what they do as far as causing us physical pain, we don't stop. Mm-hmm. No matter what they're giving us to eat, we can make it smell so good and taste so wonderful. We don't stop. But the thing that really burns their behind is the fact that at the end of the day, no matter what you did to us, we can find the ability to laugh, smile, sing, and dance and enjoy our families, enjoy being together. Hell, we even good when you leave us alone.
Yeah.
But this is the one thing that they can't stand. And it's not really about color, it's just that it's in this color. You cannot break our spirit. No matter what you do, no matter what you try, how many of our loved ones you kill, take away, sell off, no matter what you do to us, you cannot break our spirit. Because even if you lock us away in a hole and we don't see the sun but 1 hour every other day, we're going to be good. Because we like ourselves enough to be all right. You know, they can't stand the silence because then they got to hear all that crazy shit in their head. And I'm not saying that's every white person. That's some sick people. And I don't even I don't color coordinate people. Because stupid is what stupid does, and it don't matter what color you are.
That's right.
But it's the way that we can handle, no matter what it is you throw at us, that they can't take.
We survive.
We good at it. You know, they say, well, you're not going to have any money or for food. Shit. Black people got poor down to a science. What you talking about? And everybody will eat. Still keep the lights on, talk to the man, get the water, take care of. We got it. Don't worry.
Right.
No matter what they throw at us, if we got to go back to the barter system, you know, swapping out things with our neighbors, whatever, we will survive. You could turn the lights off in any city, any town, turn the power off, and we're going to be all right. Because I'm going to tell you, we survived it here in Detroit when the power grid went down. And people just said, well, get them grills going.
All right. Put them candles out.
And we stayed outside all night partying. People was good. The only messed up part couldn't flush the toilet, but guess what? We figured that out too. It ain't new.
You know,
we can survive whatever you put us through. And when you take a loved one away, all you do is transfer that spirit and that energy and that power over to the next one. And that's why you see me, D, and the rest of us out here.
That's right. That's right.
Ain't no punks in our family, no matter who you take out. Because if somebody came and got me, I guarantee you 5 more going to pop up.
Absolutely. And again, that's what makes us strong.
I think it's more than that, but yeah, I agree.
But let me just quickly bring in TJ before I get onto something else, because for TJ, she's a woman, she's a mother, she's a wife, you know, and she lost a loved one. And the question I was trying to ask her earlier on, while she was trying to get Patrick in the group, and we couldn't get her in, was that does she see any differently than how we're saying it, or I'm just asking because. Again, she's not black, but she's still a woman of color, of some color. How you doing, TJ?
I'm good.
My sister.
I'm good.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on what you've just been hearing so far, TJ?
It's just so appalling, you know. Growing up, I grew up outside of Portland, and you know, just the prejudice. I witnessed that as I was young. And, you know, my mother is a Mexican. So, you know, she was like, no prejudice, no prejudice. And our father was like a typical raised white person, I guess, in America. And it was all about prejudice. I remember that. I distinctly remember that. And they were judged. Like I remember when I was very, very young, my brother and I went to the store for my little sister who was born in 1964. So it was right around 1965, 64. So that puts us with Martin Luther King and with the Kennedys and what was happening in America then. And we were going to the store for food, little baby food jars for my little sister who was just born. And we were tied to a tree in a place called Peninsula Park in North Portland. And, you know, my father was outraged. He was outraged. And we were tied to a tree by two black people. And when we weren't hurt or anything. It was just a power thing, I believe, looking back on it now. But my father completely uprooted us and took us out of North Portland. And we went to Lake Oswego, Oregon. It appalls me. My mother will fight you all the way from border to border on my minorities and on the migrant programs that she runs up and down the West Coast. So I was raised, and you know what? My father, when he died, his best friend was black. So what's it show you? You adapt to the surroundings. You adapt. You're survivors. Here's
a quick question for you, TJ. Your experience being tied to a tree by a couple of black fellas, did that change your view on black people for the rest of your life? Did it taint your opinion of black people at all?
I don't think so. I just think that was just, North Portland is predominantly black and, or poor. And at that time, I don't know what it is now, but at that time, I don't think so, because my mother was so strong in being against prejudice. She was very, very strong on that, being a Mexican, which I was very proud of. So I think that as I grew up, I learned that color doesn't matter. And it absolutely doesn't, boss. It doesn't. Look at the promo.
So here's the thing, right? There are many white people across the world, America and the UK, where you've got predominantly mixed ethnicities in particular, right?
Right.
Where people of different color can talk about that they've had a run-in or a confrontation or an experience, right? Let's take that to the next level. So let me just bring in D. Martin for a minute. So your brother was killed by a white cop. Does that make you hate white folk? Do you judge white folk based on what the white cop did to your brother?
No, I don't. I have many friends that don't look like me all across the board. In my family, it doesn't make me hate them specifically. I dislike law enforcement, and that's being modest in saying that. But it does not. I don't have a bone to hate. In my body, I despise certain things. The thing that I hate is ignorance. Ignorance has no color. I hate ignorance. I cannot tolerate it. It infuriates me, obviously, but it doesn't make me grow a certain hatred. Just because he did it doesn't mean that he's responsible for what he did. However, this particular person, I do not like. Well, if something were to happen on the street, I'm going to honestly tell you, with this specific police officer, somebody's going to have to lovely ball him because I'm not.
Sorry, D. There stands the case. The point, in fact, that I'm trying to make, right, is this. So your brother is killed by a white cop. Your anger, your annoyance is with that cop and law enforcement that covers it up and tries to re-victimize you and your family over it, right? But you can walk into a local delicatessen, corner shop, a taxi, bus or train and see another white individual and not have a murmur of discouragement in your heart for that individual. So the question goes back, and I don't care who wants to try and answer this. Why is it every time a white folk has a problem or an encounter, a negative experience with a black folk, all of a sudden the whole black world is at fault? That's the part that causes the most biggest controversy that I witness in the beginning of racism or racist behavior, is that the moment somebody has an encounter, it's almost they tar every brush with the same feather. Do you want to come in on that, Patrick?
Okay, let me.
Oh, come on, TJ.
I'll come in for 1 second, Patrick. I think that it's about education. And when we're young, how this country was educated. If we're taught prejudice and we're going to live prejudice, and then it goes down to individualists. If, I don't have a problem with black people. I have a lot of really good black friends. And I have a black boss.
And a good black boss.
Anyway, yeah. So, right. Look at your promo today. Here I'm sitting between a lot of people that I just love. And you're all black. What's up with that?
We love you too, TJ. We love you too. Now,
we absolutely do love you, Therese. Absolutely. And I think that as we get into as our objective is to deal with police accountability, and I think that what I've seen over the 5 years that I've been involved and kept a watchful eye on this is that I've seen that if a white person's rights are violated by cops, they pretty much get the same justice, which is no justice, that any of the rest of us have. And what I think is going on here is that when we talk about fear, the planet, and not just America, but the planet is browning, and there's no stopping that. And I think that may also play in, at least into them selling their racism, as far as we're not going to be here anymore if we keep letting these people get a leg up. If we keep letting them mix. I mean, that was the fear from before the civil rights, is that if we give them rights and allow them to integrate the schools and workplaces, then they're going to be dating our daughters and so forth. And that also, I believe, plays into this fear that they have. But I want us to be clear that we not miss the objective of police being held accountable in all cases, is that if a police violates your rights, regardless of what color you are, you're going to be black, right? Pretty much 99.8% of the time, it's not going to go well for you. They're going to circle the wagons and protect their officers, just as they do when it happens with a black person. So I don't want us to lose that. I also learned years ago that when you look at those tests of that started in the 60s, Jane Elliott was involved, of the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiments, the black versus brown baby dolls. Some of this, when you've only seen in media and on TV, black people expressed as drug dealers and pimps and these subversive types of people, that plays a role in socializing not just white people, but black people as well. As we learn, as we grow and learn that we are more than, and I think that the election of president and re-election of President Obama has done more for our awakening than almost anything that I've seen in my 53 years of us realizing that we are fully competent, that we are able to exceed and to learn at rates that anyone else can and to achieve. I think this is for some white people and not all white people. I would never paint with a broad brush. I have white people in my family. Ethnically, I guess I was adopted by a black family at 3 months old, but my mother was a white woman. My father was black and Indian. I've been raised and consider myself a black man in this country. And I think that when we start talking about ethnicity, we need to be very careful that we don't miss the bigger picture that these police are getting away with raining hell on everyone.
Very true. Okay, so that makes perfect sense. So now we've got around about 45 minutes of the show left. And I want to get back to When They See Us, because having laid down the foundation of understanding what the mentality is, what the characteristics are, where the fear comes from, why the fear is there, how we interact with one another, and getting our personal thoughts and opinions across. Let's bring it to the case at hand. We still need to bring Lorraine Thompson back in at some point. So please don't let me forget. that we need to bring Lorraine back in again. Going back to the Central Park 5. Around 30 odd or so individuals, I think it was about 30 odd, ran into that park that night, right? And I forget what was the terminology that they used. I forget what it was now, what they were going to do anyhow. They were just going to go and fool around and just rough up a few people and be a nuisance. Basically, these were kids. These were in park kids. And let us not forget that an innocent jogger was maliciously and violently raped and left for dead. That's a fact. And a crime was committed, a most heinous and horrible crime on her. But she didn't come round till 1:30 and cannot remember a thing. Neither could she remember being approached or attacked. She was unable to give any description whatsoever as to who her assailant or assailants were, or even how many they might have been involved. In fact, she was unable to give any information whatsoever. However, forensic evidence was found on her, including DNA samples from, I think it was semen or whatever it was. There was evidence that was found because that was eventually used to match up with his DNA. But they did find DNA very similar to the Cardiff 5. The DNA did not match any of the Central Park 5. My concern is, yes, there was this thing going on in the park. But the way that they wanted to convince themselves that it must be them and nobody else because of who they were. Does anybody think, had it been a group of white guys that had gone in there to fool around, and that the outcome would have been the same? Anybody?
Well, Mr. Kirby, what I did when I was doing a little research on it, I think it was one of the investigators, Rosera, from the hospital, when, according to what they had in the indictment, that he determined that the condition, the magnitude, and the nature of the injuries, that the assault, she fought back, and more than likely the crime was perpetrated by more than one individual. So I think a great part of even just looking for it to be more than one person, especially in the end result, when the person, I think they titled him as a serial rapist, admitted and the DNA matched. But just from the onset, when you look at from that perception, it was determined at that point that it was not one person. So the fact that that group, just like you're saying, had already been arrested, and the reason they were held and all of that is because that particular detective determined at that point it couldn't have been one person. So I do believe, just like you're saying, because they were Hispanic and Black and had already had several reports, I think it's what it says, of different mischievous activity, and him determining that that couldn't have happened by one person, totally contributed to the fact that they would look at a group from that point on.
And how they managed, let's be frank here, there was a mixture of ethnicities in that park. It wasn't just black kids, right?
That's what they said. That's correct.
It was 4 blacks and 2 Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think it was anywhere, depending on what you look at, the information that was read that night.
Right, they had held 14 in custody. But, you know, it's that's the equivalent of a fleet.
Yeah, 20 to 24 were actually officially arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And
but that's just, you know, like Patrick was saying, to sum it up, it's conditioning. People are conditioned to look at situations and assume that it could only be done by a person of color because they are depraved, they are wild, they are this, that, and the other. But guess what? Most of the stuff that black people do is something that they saw some white person do on TV. You know, the monkey see, monkey do is not really what people think.
I guess the
we
point I
make
was,
a lot that we see there.
oh, I'm sorry, Yolanda. I think the point that I was trying to make is that had that detective not assumed from the beginning it was more than one people, it would have been no reason to question that many. And as far as saying that, you know, it was a group.
I hear what you're saying, Lorraine, but here lies my problem. That district attorney or chief prosecutor, whatever her role was, the one, whatever her name is, she...
Letterer.
That's right. She walked in there, and from the moment she walked in there, she asked them questions, and her immediate reaction was, these guys have something to do with it. It wouldn't have mattered if it was 1, 5, 20, or 15. As far as she was concerned, she was never looking outside of the group of those guys that were in there. And I can only imagine.
And refuse to.
Yeah, I could only imagine because of who they are, what they were. That's what fueled her decision to stick with that. And from that moment onwards, right, she more or less orchestrated her investigative team to stay on that track and find something that will stick to this group of people. There was never an intention to find the truth. From the entire...
And once they got the DNA back, that should have been the end of it. Okay, these are not the guys.
Yeah, we're barking up the wrong tree.
But instead they seal up that evidence and push even harder that we're going to pin this on these young men.
No matter what.
Right? No matter what.
And there lies and this is it. And I think not enough people are actually paying it, because for me, right, the fact that this attorney, well, what she is, right, has still not been held up in a court of law is criminal in itself. Because for me, right, the moment that, and Patrick, you're spot on, the moment that DNA came, I can understand, and I think anybody with any reasonable common sense, you got a group of kids that were storming through the park, somebody's been robbed, they're all running away when the police come, and then you find a body, and she's unconscious, she's been raped. There's a possibility that these guys could have had something to do. Let's investigate. I get all of that, and I think up until that point, I think so with everybody else. But the moment you get the DNA back, and that says it doesn't belong to any of these, you now need to start turning your investigation somewhere else. But what they did was, they sidetracked that, put that to one side and said, right, okay, let's find another way to make this fit on them.
That's right.
And there lies the beginning of the wheel of conspiracy that turned this from a criminal investigation into a witch hunt of trying to subject innocent black kids of and other ethnicities to a crime that they must have known
That they didn't do.
They didn't do.
That's right.
Now, when we start looking at people who are supposed to uphold the law, and that is their negligent approach to it, then surely they should be the first ones that are held up to accountability.
You would think.
Well, Letterer, when they see us broke and gained national attention, Lederer resigned from her position at Columbia Law School.
Correct.
And I will say this, that these people don't do that for nothing, right? You just don't resign a position that you maybe worked your entire life to gain, to gain access to. And when something happens, if you're on the right, you don't resign that position. I think that what Lederer and what Fireside did, I think it is criminal. I think that there should be more done to this. And also something I want to point out is that we talk about the Central Park Five, but we all know that this is just a representation of thousands, if not tens of thousands of cases that have gone this way, where they coerce people to sign testimonies of crimes that they didn't get, with the threat of if you don't admit to it, we're going to give you all the time. If you admit to it, we'll let you off with 2 or 3 years. And so we have innocent people languishing in prison cells for crimes that they didn't commit. I mean, when we look at even just the death row numbers, we have some studies have said as much as 1 in 25 death row inmates are innocent. In my mind, if you have a 1/25th chance of being innocent, of being put to death and you're innocent, it's time to review and to reevaluate that system. Even one out of 25 an innocent person being put to death is too many for me.
Absolutely. So when you look at it in general, I'm hoping that Yolanda's still there. I think Dee has had to leave us now. There is a thing.
I'm here.
Yeah. The way that I want to put it is this. I've often been referred to as intimidating. So I have had it said that you are a big black man and you are intimidating. I am intimidating you, then that's something that I need to deal with, because that's not my intention, right? Do not mix or mistake passion for aggression, right? Intimidated by me, then that's something with. And I think people get it wrong. A lot of people are intimidated by black folk. It's not that. We are passionate. We're loud. We're confident. We're excitable. We get stuck into stuff. If we're dancing, we want to bust some moves. That's us. That's our character. Those are our characteristics. That's what makes us historically who we are.
True.
If you're telling me that me being excitable, me being passionate, me loving what I do, me trying to express how much I love living life, if you're telling me that intimidates you, then you've got a problem, not me. So when they see us, what is it that they see? Because what they see is what they fear. And what they fear is what they lack. And what they lack is what we have. And what we have is what they wish they had. And there lies the problem.
Agreed. I can't help but to agree. I cannot help but to agree with that. My presence, I'm over 6 feet tall, 6'1", kind of a medium muscular guy. My presence alone intimidates people. I've seen it, and once they get to know me, that is alleviated. But I've walked into rooms where I've been in classes where my professor would tell me, there are people here that are just intimidated by your presence. And I want to add this, that it's not just our physicality. If I've been around people when they think that you are smarter than them, when they believe that you have more than them, when they anything can kind of cause that reaction in people. I've experienced it anyway. And when they see us, I think it was a great title for this piece on the Central Park Five, because that's really where we need to get to is what are you seeing? And going back to my earlier statement about social media, for so long we were just allowed to exist in these opposite corners. But now we are getting windows into each other's lives. And I think what we're finding out is that people are pretty much the same all over. And that also in itself goes against what a lot of society and socialization has taught them, is that there is some great difference between us and them, or between people, period. That doesn't exist. Again, it's more imagined than is actual.
Actually, right. Yeah. Perfect. Spot on, Patrick.
It hurts sometimes when you think that people are actually offended by what they like about us but can't find in themselves. Here's the thing. We've said this here in the UK. I don't know how much it is out there in America, but in the UK it's pretty evident, right? If you go back, say 15 or 20 years, you could tell where a black guy was from just by the type of music that was coming out of his car, right? Whether you got R&B or reggae music, there are all different types of reggae music. You've got dancehall, you've got ragga, you've got conscious Rasta music, you've got dub, you got and you can lovers rock and old school and Studio One and ska and blue beat, and you got all. But if you heard music coming out of someone's car, you had a rough idea what part of the country he was from, what part of the city he was from, how he dressed. You could tell that he wasn't from around here, right? The type of pants, or the color of pants, or the jacket, or the type of jacket that they were wearing, the hat that they might wear. You can tell that somebody wasn't from around here. People had identity, even community style identity, right? And you had a style, and you had black folk, and I'm saying it, yeah, watch me say it. Black folk had a style about us, right? We ironed our pants, the crease you can slice your bread with, right? We dressed, yeah.
That's so true. Woo!
We dressed in a certain way. Do you know I never wore a pair of, I don't know what you guys call them out there, they're trainers here in the UK, like Plimsolls or trainers or Nike or whatever. You know, I never wore a pair of them until I was about 35. I was a shirt, trousers and shoes man, right? Right up until I was about 35. I never wore tracksuits and I never wore jeans, right? That wasn't me. And most of the people that I grew up with around where I lived, we loved to wear our shoes. We loved to wear a slick trousers. We loved to put on a nice fancy shirt, right? That was how we were, right? But now when you look of the youth of today in particular, until they turn around and you see them face to face, you don't even know what color they are anymore. Right. They're all wearing hoodies. They're all wearing darkers. They're all wearing tracksuits. Yeah. They're all wearing pumps. They're all wearing saggy pants. All of them. Whether they're Asian, whether they're black, whether they're Latino, whether they're white.
They're all listening to this.
And yes,
they're all listening to the same music.
Exactly.
Those cultural lines that used to define groups or help to define groups have become so much more blurred in this era. And I think it lends to bringing us all together in a way that we haven't seen before. That's what I think. We are all listening to the same thing. I pulled up beside a group, actually a car pulled up behind me, and they were blasting the most, what do they call it, trap music? I'm a little old here, so they call it trap music. And I thought okay, they need to turn that music down. And I'm thinking if some black kids, it was some white kids, white college kids, dressed as any kid in any impoverished community might be dressed. And I really had to check myself at that moment, you know. And I realized, and I remember realizing with a smile, these lines are becoming blurred. We have the ability or the shot to become more. At least that's what I hope.
I sometimes notice the embarrassment on a white kid's face when he's pumping out some reggae bashment music out of his car and he pulls up alongside me with his baseball cap turned back to front, you know what I mean, and his dark shades on and he's trying to lean in his car in a certain way, and then he looks around and he sees a real black dude and he guys just quickly tries to straighten up and turn his music down and look normal. And it's almost embarrassing to watch sometimes, but I get it, you know. But here's the thing, because that's what you said at the very beginning, Patrick. The fact that they like everything about us except us.
Except us. That's a psychosis.
And I don't think it's us they don't like. I think it's that they can't be us is the problem. They can't be us.
As Yolanda said, emulation is the highest form of flattery. And we are the most emulated beings on the planet, I believe. I mean, everything, entertainment, music, just almost anything cultural that you can put your finger on in America. Black people have, even when we look at this Little Nas with this country song, Old Town Road, that has gained so much attention the last few months. I mean, that shouldn't create an uproar, you would think, you know? But it has so much that I guess the Country Music Awards, they weren't allowed to participate. And there were country charts that song was not allowed to be on because it was not, in their definition, country music. But those lines, as we go on, are becoming more blurred and more blurred each and every year.
You even go to the music charts, Patrick, and I know we're going off track a little bit, but it all begins to show what these demographics were. You go back to the 70s and the 80s and the charts. You had the diversity of music that was available back then. Motown was Motown, rock was rock, pop was pop. You know what I mean? Soul was soul. You know, we even had a handbag style. We used to call it handbag soul, and that would kind of be like your Archie Bell and the Drells and your McFadden and Whiteheads, you know, and you know what I mean? Your Gap and stuff like that. You know, you had your handbag soul, and those are the ones where, you know, the girls would come around and dance in a circle and do their little move kind of thing. But then what you had was everybody just wanted to sound a certain way. Everybody just wanted to replicate a certain style. And so now music is not as enjoyable as it used to be because everybody is trying to bring out the same style until they rinse it out so much it becomes unbearable to listen to. But they've watered down the heritage, they've watered down the culture, they've watered it all down, and yet they're still striving to be it. What is it? Somebody please tell me, what is it? What is it? What is it about what we did, who we were, what we are, that makes us so feared and hated, but yet they are so keen to replicate? Anybody want to come in there? Don't leave me hanging.
I agree, Kervin. I agree with everything that you said. I think it's our passion. It's our everything that we've already, you know, talked about. It's that ability to keep going, and to keep going with style. You know, with a swagger, right? We move through this life through great adversity. We are at a disadvantage, yet we keep going and we keep achieving. And for some people, and I like I said before, I have met I learned long ago that not every black man was my brother and not every white man was my enemy.
Yeah.
And I've met some white people that were more down with our issues than most black people that I know. And conversely, I've also met some black people that were not at all anyone that I would consider a brother. They were not, they cared about themselves. They didn't care about the communities that they were living in or are part of. But I think that when we talk about the racial divide in America and worldwide, that we need to be, again, careful because here's what I've been thinking about, Kervin, real quickly, is I think where we're at now is framing this issue of police accountability. Mm-hmm. And how we frame it is going to be so important going forward. And what I would like to be a part of is a campaign to frame it that regardless of who you are and what ethnicity or religion or creed you hold to, when you're violated by police, you are behind the eight ball. There's a great chance you're not going to receive justice in that case. And I think that as we go forward, we're really more effective when we go forward together, which is when we look back through our history in America, that's when we did great things, as we did it together. That's when we got the Civil Rights Voting Act. That's when it wasn't just 75% of the freedom fighters that went down to a dangerous and violent South were Jewish Americans. Young Jewish American kids, basically. So when we go forward together, we become unstoppable.
We are a powerful unit. And that is the bottom line. We actually got so much more in common than we've actually got against one another, that if we stop listening to the propaganda, if we stop falling foul to all of the lines that are trying to be blurred between us, we could actually make a difference together. Now, where's my co-producer? TJ.
I'm here. Hey.
Going forward, how do we bring more cohesion to ethnic groups that are finding it difficult to get along with one another?
That's a hard question for me to answer because there's no prejudice in my life. I don't know. This is a very heavy show this time, and it really touches home in a lot of spots. And I think that we're at a point in life that everything's right on schedule. And that's the man upstairs' schedule. And it's all surrendered to him. And then you come together as a unit. You unify. And I think that's what's happening is I think there's a unification going on. And I think that there's also going to be a revolution.
As I don't endorse violence in any way, shape or form.
Right.
I can't help believing that that's what it eventually will take, another revolution. But I would not like to see that, because I still think that in the midst of that revolution, many more lives will be lost, hurt, or incarcerated. So families will be ripped apart and broken irreparably in some instances. And to me, I do think that some things deserve a cost, but not at any cost.
Right.
Right. We've got to fight, but we've got to find the right fight to fight. We've got to pick our battles. But we've got to do it unitedly. We've got to do it in strength. We've got to do it with conviction.
Right.
We've got to do it in power and belief. We've got to do it with confidence and boldness. We've got to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that we've got to do it with violence.
Absolutely, and also what Martin Luther King said is that he chose love because hate was too heavy a burden to bear. That's how I feel. That's how I go forward. Is I choose love. I am not going to hate anyone I'm not going to hate anyone for their religion, the color of their skin. I'm going to treat everyone with as much love, compassion, and understanding as I can. That's my choice. Now, at the same time, as I say that, sometimes love it doesn't feel good, right? Sometimes it's hard. Like I had a mother who was very good at, some of us had that nurturing, soft, kind mother. I had a black mother from the South who told me the truth. And it didn't always feel good, but it was always love, right? She said those things and she framed them in the way that she framed them out of love. It wasn't out of anything but I love you. And I want you to have all the tools that you need to survive in this life. And so love is varied, I guess is what I'm saying. It doesn't always feel good. It's not always what we want to hear, but it's always what we need to hear.
It always starts and ends in love. It has to, because otherwise, what do we teach? If we're not teaching love, what are we teaching? If we're not teaching our kids love, what are we teaching?
Exactly.
I do believe that's not how it will end, but that's how I'd like to see it go forward, is with love. Because, Patrick, the same love that you have for your mother, is the same love that I have for mine. And I would imagine the same love that Yolanda and Teresa have for theirs.
Yes.
Love is something that is so easy to administer, but yet so many people find difficult to do because it means that you have to give of yourself. But yet, to give of yourself has got to be the greatest gift that you can give.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You take any child.
Spot on, boss.
Yeah, you take any child and give them the choice between money and your time. And you'll probably find out that time is what will matter most.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't make sense now, ask someone when they're lying on their deathbed what they would have preferred, money or time.
Right.
And they'll tell you they wish they could have back the time, because the money don't mean nothing.
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
So for me, it starts and it ends in love.
With love.
With love.
With love,
Amen.
always.
Amen.
Yolanda, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm here. Everybody was spot on. What Patrick said is true. When you look at people, just see people. Don't see a color, don't see a culture, don't see a religion, see a person. The one thing I taught my kids, and I still tell my grandkids, is it doesn't matter if a person is white, black, polka dot, or striped. If they treat you right, they're good people. If they treat you wrong, make sure that's the one and only time that they do it.
Amen.
And you just have to take people as they come. If they show you, if they say they one way and they show you different, believe what you see. And then treat them, or make sure that you don't have anything else to do with them. But this battle, like I said on our text, it's multi-level. We gotta battle in the streets, so people suck it up. Believe it, it's gonna happen. But it's a multi-level fight. We gotta fight it in the streets. We gotta fight it in our local cities. We gotta fight it in our states. We gotta take it all the way to the top. Because change is not going to come to us. We got to go to it.
Amen. Here's the important thing. While you've got something like the Central Park 5 hanging over us with no accountability, with no criminal convictions, with no prosecution, with no consequence, while you've got that hanging out, you're actually going to have people who are still going to pick sides, take sides, stand against one another. You see, because somebody's got to turn and stand up. It's like, how can I put it? It's like you being in the house and you've got two children, right? The two children have just been at war. Now, the war started because one child went and took the other child's toy and threw it out the window. Now the other child, all the other child has done is cried. Now the child has cried, annoyed their parents, and the parents have come and said, what are you crying for? You're making so much noise. I've been to work all night. I didn't need this noise. I need to go to sleep. And this child has been absolutely punished for making this noise. But the root cause was the child who took the toy and threw it out the window. Now, once you've punished the child that was crying and done nothing about to the child that who stole the toy and threw it out the window, what have you taught them? Last question. I'm just throwing that out there. What have we actually taught them?
You've taught them that behavior of throwing that toy out the window is acceptable. We've all seen that video of Jane Elliott where she is at it looks to be like some type of an arena, and she asked the white people, I want you to raise your hands of all of the people here that want the treatment that black people have. And no one raised their hands. And she said, well, that tells me two things. She says, first, you know what's going on. And second, you don't want it for yourselves.
Amen.
Right?
Powerful. In a nutshell, powerful. And that's it. Right? So here we are. Right? We've got the Central Park Five guys that were sentenced to prison for a crime they didn't commit. And we've got a judicial system that should be held accountable and are still not. And until that judicial system is held accountable, put on trial, and faces consequences, you're going to have this difference of opinion and these thoughts and belief patterns that are taking place that still holds one people against another. Justice must prevail. Justice hasn't got a colour. It's just about right and wrong. That's what justice is. It's not about colour. It's about right and wrong. And if we don't put right the wrongs, then we're in for a hell of a lot more turmoil yet.
You are right.
I feel sorry for the next generation. If we can't get it right now, the next generation and the generation after that, my gosh.
I shudder. I do. I fear.
My friends, we've got 5 minutes left. Last thoughts. Yolanda, last thoughts.
I think Yolanda left.
Okay. Lorraine, sorry we didn't get back to you. Last thoughts, Lorraine.
That's okay, Mr. Kerb, and it's different because I get absorbed in the podcast every week, so I'm absorbing and listening. But I do want to jump in and say that the reason Teresa did invite me in is because, like you mentioned earlier, my son DeMarco Wilson, along with 2 others, were wrongly convicted for a capital murder in Arkansas in 1997. So I did, we're trying to get a group together. Mr. Kervin, you're going to let us do a podcast when we get everybody together. It would be with Mr. Kurt Muhammad and Jerry Johnson and Shirley Gillum, Cynthia Hall, and hopefully LaShelle Gillum in regard to the podcast you did early in November. But in Arkansas, which is where this case took place, Mr. Muhammad and Mr. Johnson, they do have Gone But Never Forgotten as an organization. They did a prison reform in Arkansas in June of 2019. They have an upcoming event planned for July the 27th at the 9th Street Park in Little Rock. It's right there by the Capitol. And in addition to that, they do have another group that is in the public eye, or in the eye of the public, and they are also working with people in Arkansas surrounding areas, wrongful conviction, extreme long sentences, how once you've been convicted and you're back out in the world, how difficult it is to get re-entered, just options available, different information available. So they're working hard in Arkansas, and hopefully Mr. Kervin will get everybody together in the future and get to do a podcast and revisit DeMarco's case.
Well, I do believe that we've got that scheduled. I think Teresa's already got it booked in. Thank you very much, and I'm really sorry
That's okay.
Yeah,
I was loving it.
that's okay. Thank you very much, Patrick, Yolanda, TJ. Sorry, not TJ. D. And let's just get TJ in for her very last thoughts.
Wow, what a show. What a show, boss. I don't know what else I can say. I am so appreciative. I love this roundtable so much. Thank you for coming, Lorraine. Thank you for accommodating us. And we are anxious to see what you bring to the podcast. Boss, as usual, you are rocking.
You're biased, TJ. You're very biased.
Thank you, sir.
Listen, I just want to thank you all, Patrick, Yolanda, Dee, Lorraine. I want to thank you all for joining us here today and taking part in this particular Roundtable 5 debate on the Central Park 5. But most importantly, I want to thank you, TJ, for all the hard work that you continue to do behind the scenes, pulling this all together and just making things so easy for me. Love you dearly.
I love this.
And just thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're on a roll.
Thank you guys, Mr. Kervin and TJ. I appreciate so much your dedication to what you do. It's definitely encouraging to those of us that are going through.
Well, we thank you very much once again, Lorraine. And we look forward to being here. What have we got on next week, TJ?
Okay, well, I think I should have been ready for that, right, boss? Yeah. But here I am, just wrapped up in the show. Next week is Royce
Eckley.
Yes.
And Mark Harper.
She'll have, I believe, her attorney with her, Mark.
Yeah, Mark Harper.
Yes.
Yeah, private.
So that's exciting.
Yeah. We've done the show about 2 or 3 times now, but it's up. They've got some new information, and we're really gonna tear this one apart.
Yeah,
it's going to be a great show. I just want to thank all of you again for joining, being part of it. Our audience that have been taking part, Hannah and Vanessa and everybody else that has tuned in. Thank you so much. That's all we've got time for. We're actually out of here. Thank you very much.
World Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
Thank you.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.